My husband cheated on me with my best friend in our bedroom while our baby slept in the next room, and now they're forcing me to sign over custody of my child or they'll ruin my life. I never imagined that my life could unravel in such a brutal, devastating way. My name is Samantha, 29F, and I've been married to Ethan, 32M, for 6 years. We have a 1-year-old daughter, Emma, who's the light of my life. I thought we were happy, or at least content. Life with a baby is exhausting, and I'd been so focused on motherhood that maybe I didn't see the cracks forming in our relationship. But never in a million years did I think those cracks would lead to betrayal. I found out about the affair in the most humiliating way possible. My best friend, Kara, 30F, had always been there for me. We grew up together, went through everything side by side, high school, college, even the start of our marriages. Kara was supposed to be my rock, but instead she was sleeping with my husband. It started with small suspicions that I tried to push aside. Ethan had been acting distant for months, always on his phone, always finding excuses to stay late at work. I tried not to let it get to me. We had a baby. We were just tired, right? That's what I kept telling myself. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One night, I woke up to Emma's soft cries through the baby monitor. I glanced over, expecting Ethan to still be asleep beside me, but his side of the bed was empty. The house was dark and silent, except for Emma's faint sounds in the next room. I got up, thinking maybe Ethan was in the kitchen or bathroom. But as I passed by the hallway, I noticed our bedroom door was slightly ajar. Curiosity got the better of me. I peeked inside, and that's when I saw it. Ethan was in our bed, but not alone. Kara was there too, her body tangled with his under the same sheets where we had built our life together. My heart stopped, my stomach dropped, and I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. It was as if the world had shifted off its axis, and I was spinning, struggling to grasp what I was seeing. In that moment, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, frozen, my hand gripping the doorknob so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Kara's voice echoed in my head. All those times she told me I could trust her with anything. She was supposed to be my best friend. And there she was, in my bed, with my husband, while my baby slept in the next room. The betrayal was so complete, so overwhelming, that I couldn't process it. All I could think about was Emma, my beautiful baby girl, asleep and oblivious to the destruction happening just feet away from her nursery. What kind of monsters could do this? In our home, while our daughter was so close by. I must have made a noise because Kara's eyes snapped open and she gasped, pulling the covers up to her chest. Ethan jolted awake, his face going pale when he saw me standing there. "Samantha, wait." I didn't wait. I turned and ran, my feet carrying me out of the house as fast as they could. I grabbed Emma from her crib on the way out, holding her close as I fled into the night. My mind was racing, my heart shattering with every step. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't even look at them. The pain was too raw, too intense. I drove around for hours, my hands trembling on the steering wheel, unsure of where to go or what to do. I called my sister, sobbing into the phone as I told her everything. She told me to come over, that I could stay with her and figure things out in the morning. But there was no figuring this out. My life had just been obliterated. How could Ethan and Kara betray me like this? How could they destroy everything we had built, everything we had promised to each other? And how could they do it while our daughter was in the next room? I couldn't comprehend the cruelty, the callousness of it all. By the time I arrived at my sister's house, my tears had dried, replaced by a hollow, numbing ache. I sat on her couch, staring at the floor as Emma slept peacefully in my arms. I knew that everything had changed. The life I thought I had was gone, and there was no going back. But little did I know, this nightmare was only just beginning. The next morning, I woke up on my sister's couch, still holding Emma close to me. For a moment, I hoped that everything had been a terrible nightmare, but as soon as I opened my eyes and saw the worried expression on my sister's face, reality crashed back down. The memories of the previous night flooded in, the sight of Ethan and Kara in our bed, the betrayal, the disbelief. My phone had been vibrating nonstop with texts and missed calls from Ethan. I hadn't responded to a single one, but the messages kept coming. "Samantha, I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. It's not what you think. Can we talk? Please. I love you. We can fix this. I made a mistake." I stared at the screen, feeling nothing but disgust. His words meant nothing to me now. There was no explanation, no excuse that could make this right. I didn't want to hear his lies, his pathetic attempts to smooth things over. He had destroyed everything, and for what? A fling with my best friend? Kara, too, had tried calling me. Her voicemails were filled with tearful apologies, excuses, and pleas for forgiveness. "Samantha, please, I'm so sorry. It just happened. I never meant to hurt you. Please don't hate me." How could I not hate her? The person who was supposed to have my back, the one who was there for me through thick and thin, had betrayed me in the most personal, gut-wrenching way possible. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I had trusted her more than anyone. She had known everything about me, my fears, my insecurities, my love for Ethan, and she had used all of it against me. As I sat there, trying to make sense of the mess my life had become, my sister brought me a cup of coffee and sat down beside me. "What are you going to do?" she asked gently, her eyes full of concern. "I don't know," I whispered. "I can't go back there. I can't look at him, at her. I just can't." "You don't have to make any decisions right now," she said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You can stay here as long as you need to. We'll figure it out together." But that was the problem. I didn't know how to figure it out. I didn't know what to do next. My entire world had been flipped upside down in the span of a few hours, and I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to fall into the abyss. That afternoon, my sister offered to watch Emma so I could clear my head. I decided to go for a walk, hoping that some fresh air would help me think. But as I stepped outside, I spotted a car pulling into the driveway. It was Ethan. Panic surged through me as he got out of the car, his eyes locking onto mine. He looked disheveled, like he hadn't slept all night, and there was a desperate, pleading look on his face. "Samantha, please just talk to me," he said, his voice cracking. "I messed up, I know I did, but we can fix this. I love you. I can't lose you." I took a step back, my chest tightening with anger. "You already lost me, Ethan. The moment you slept with Kara, you lost everything." "I was stupid," he pleaded, stepping closer. "It didn't mean anything, I swear. It was a mistake, a horrible mistake. But it's you I love. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. How can you even say that?" I snapped, my voice trembling with rage. "You slept with my best friend. In our bed, while our daughter was in the next room. How can you even begin to justify that?" "I'm not trying to justify it," he said, his hands shaking. "I'm trying to fix it. I don't want to lose you, Samantha. Please just let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said coldly. "You made your choice, Ethan, and now you have to live with it." He looked like he was about to break down, his eyes filling with tears. "What about Emma?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "She needs both of us. We can't tear our family apart like this." I scoffed, shaking my head in disbelief. "You should have thought about that before you slept with Kara. You're the one who tore our family apart, not me." Ethan stood there, speechless, his eyes pleading with me to forgive him, to give him another chance. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. "Just go, Ethan," I said, my voice cold and firm. "I don't want to see you right now." He hesitated for a moment, like he was going to try again, but then he turned and walked back to his car. As he drove away, I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and relief. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but at least I didn't have to deal with him right then. But as I watched his car disappear down the street, I realized that this was only the beginning. Ethan and Kara weren't just going to disappear from my life. They had taken everything from me, my marriage, my trust, my sense of security. And now I was left to pick up the pieces. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. I thought things couldn't get worse after I caught Ethan and Kara together. But I was wrong. A few days after our confrontation, I was served with legal papers. Ethan wasn't just asking for forgiveness. He was demanding custody of Emma. I sat there in my sister's kitchen, staring at the papers in disbelief. I felt sick to my stomach. How could he do this? How could he betray me and then turn around and try to take my child away from me? The nerve, the sheer audacity of it all, made me feel like I was losing my mind. My sister, Jessica, 30F, was sitting across from me, her face pale with shock as she read through the documents. "This is insane," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "He's trying to make you out to be some kind of unfit mother." I nodded, my hands shaking as I took the papers back from her. "He's claiming that I'm unstable, that I've been neglecting Emma. None of it's true. He's doing this to punish me." Jessica's eyes narrowed, her anger rising to match mine. "He's using his affair with Kara as leverage. He's trying to manipulate the situation, making you look like the bad guy so he can get custody." The thought of losing Emma, of having to fight Ethan and his lies in court, was overwhelming. I couldn't lose my daughter, not after everything else he had taken from me. Emma was the one thing that kept me going, the only reason I hadn't completely fallen apart. I decided to call a lawyer. I needed to know what my options were, how I could protect myself and my child from Ethan's twisted games. The lawyer, Sarah, 45F, was calm and reassuring, but she didn't sugarcoat the situation. Custody battles were brutal, and Ethan was coming at me hard. "You need to prepare for a fight," Sarah said, her voice steady but firm. "He's playing dirty, and you need to be ready for anything." As the days went by, I started gathering evidence. I had texts, voicemails, and even photos that proved Ethan's infidelity, his betrayal. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I wasn't going to let him take Emma from me. I wasn't going to let him win. But as the legal battle began to escalate, I realized that Ethan had another weapon in his arsenal, Kara. She was willing to testify against me, to paint me as a neglectful, unstable mother who couldn't be trusted to care for Emma. The thought of my former best friend, the woman who had betrayed me so deeply, standing in court and lying about me, made my blood boil. Jessica tried to keep me calm, but the stress was getting to me. I wasn't sleeping, barely eating, and every day felt like a new wave of attacks from Ethan and his lawyer. They were relentless, filing motion after motion, trying to paint me as the villain in this twisted story. One afternoon, I received a call from Ethan's lawyer, a smug, condescending man named Peter 50M. He offered me a deal. If I agreed to share custody with Ethan and dropped my claims of infidelity, they would consider being more lenient in court. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were trying to buy me off, to make me sweep everything under the rug so Ethan could get what he wanted without facing any consequences. I hung up on Peter without saying a word, my heart pounding with rage. I wasn't going to be silenced. I wasn't going to let them bully me into submission. But the pressure kept building. Ethan and Kara were spreading rumors about me, telling our mutual friends that I was unhinged, that I was making everything up because I couldn't handle the fact that my marriage was over. They were playing the victim, twisting the narrative so that I was the one being unreasonable, the one who couldn't move on. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, trapped in a web of lies and betrayal that I couldn't escape. Every day was a new battle, a new round of accusations and counter-accusations, and through it all, I had to keep going, had to stay strong for Emma. But it was exhausting. I felt like I was drowning, like no matter how hard I fought, Ethan and Kara were always one step ahead, always finding new ways to tear me down. One night, after another grueling day of dealing with lawyers and court filings, I broke down in tears. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep fighting this battle, couldn't keep pretending that everything was going to be okay. But then I looked at Emma, peacefully asleep in her crib, and I knew I had to keep going. I had to fight for her future, for the life we deserved. I wasn't going to let Ethan and Kara win. Not now. Not ever. The weeks dragged on, and the court date loomed closer. Ethan and Kara didn't let up for a second, continuing their campaign to turn everyone against me. It wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a war for public opinion. My social media accounts became battlegrounds where they would spread lies about me, twisting the truth to make themselves look like the victims. I tried to ignore it, but it was hard. Every time I logged on, there were more comments, more messages. Some of them were from people I thought were my friends, accusing me of being petty, of trying to ruin Ethan's life because I was bitter. Others were from strangers who didn't even know me, but had been sucked into the drama. It felt like I was fighting a war on all fronts. The worst part was that Ethan and Kara were playing the role of the doting couple perfectly. They posted pictures of themselves looking happy, holding hands, smiling at the camera. In one picture, they were sitting together with Emma on Ethan's lap, making it seem like they were already a family without me. It was gut-wrenching. Seeing my daughter with them, knowing what they were trying to do, made my blood boil. I wanted to scream at the world, to make them see the truth. But no one was listening. No one cared. The stress was taking its toll on me, both physically and emotionally. I was losing weight, barely able to keep any food down. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their smug faces, heard their lies echoing in my head. I felt trapped, like there was no way out of this nightmare. Jessica was a rock for me during this time. She tried to keep me grounded, reminding me that the truth would come out in court, that I just needed to hold on a little longer. But I could tell the pressure was getting to her too. She had her own life to deal with, and I hated that I was dragging her into my mess. One night, after another barrage of hateful messages online, I hit my breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront Ethan and Kara, face them head on. I needed to make them see the damage they were causing, to make them understand that I wasn't going to back down. I called Ethan, my hands trembling as I held the phone to my ear. He answered after a few rings, his voice cool and detached. "What do you want, Chloe?" he asked, sounding almost bored. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "In person, just the two of us." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear Kara in the background laughing at something. It made my stomach turn. "Fine," Ethan finally said. "But this better not be another one of your emotional breakdowns. I'm not in the mood for your drama." We agreed to meet the next day at a park near his house. As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of dread and determination. I didn't know what I was going to say to him, but I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let them destroy me. The next day, I arrived at the park early, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched as Ethan pulled up in his car, stepping out with that same arrogant smirk on his face. He walked over to me, hands in his pockets, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. "So what's this about?" he asked, crossing his arms. "You finally ready to give up and let me have Emma?" I clenched my fists, trying to keep my anger in check. "This isn't about Emma, Ethan. This is about you and what you've done. You're trying to ruin my life, and for what? Because I caught you and Kara. Because I didn't just roll over and let you take everything from me?" He shrugged, his expression cold. "You made this harder than it had to be, Chloe. If you had just accepted that our marriage was over, none of this would be happening. But you had to turn it into a war." I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. "A war? You think I started this? You're the one who cheated. You're the one who betrayed me, and now you're trying to take Emma away from me. How is this my fault?" Ethan rolled his eyes. "You're always the victim, aren't you? Always looking for someone else to blame. Maybe if you spent less time playing the martyr and more time being a decent wife, I wouldn't have needed to find someone else." His words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I refused to let him see how much they'd hurt. "You're unbelievable," I whispered, shaking my head. "You're actually trying to justify what you did, like I'm the reason you cheated. You and Kara deserve each other." Ethan's smirk faltered for a moment, and I could see the anger flash in his eyes. He stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. "You better watch what you say, Chloe. You're already on thin ice with this custody case. Don't make it worse for yourself." I stood my ground, refusing to be intimidated. "I'm not afraid of you, Ethan. I'm not going to let you bully me into submission. You can spread all the lies you want, but the truth will come out. And when it does, you'll be the one who loses everything." For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, but it was gone just as quickly. He scoffed, turning away from me. "Whatever. This conversation is over. I'll see you in court." As he walked away, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I had stood up to him. I hadn't let him break me. But as I watched him get back into his car, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Ethan wasn't going to stop. He was going to keep coming at me, trying to tear me down until there was nothing left. I knew I had to be ready for whatever was coming next. The court date arrived, and I felt like I was walking into a lion's den. Ethan and Kara sat across from me, both dressed sharply, their smug expressions making my skin crawl. I had prepared myself for this day, but as I sat in the courtroom, I couldn't help the gnawing feeling of dread in the pit of my stomach. I knew how much was at stake, and I knew they were going to pull out all the stops to paint me as the unfit parent. Ethan's lawyer opened with a barrage of accusations, twisting every argument into a weapon against me. They claimed I was emotionally unstable, that I was trying to alienate Emma from her father, that I was a threat to her well-being. Kara played her part well, acting the concerned bystander, pretending like she had stepped into our lives to offer Emma the stability I supposedly couldn't provide. I clenched my fists under the table, struggling to keep my composure. It was one thing to face Ethan's lies, but seeing Kara sit there, playing the innocent bystander, made my blood boil. She was as much a part of this mess as he was, yet she got to sit there, pretending to be the good guy. But I had my own lawyer, and we were ready. When it was my turn to speak, I told the truth. Every sordid detail of Ethan and Kara's betrayal, how they had cheated behind my back, how they had manipulated and lied to turn people against me. I recounted how they had tried to force me into signing over custody of Emma, threatening to ruin my life if I didn't comply. I could see the judge listening carefully, his expression neutral but attentive. My lawyer presented evidence, screenshots of the messages Ethan had sent me, the threats, the lies they had spread online. I could see Ethan's smirk faltering as the weight of the evidence began to sink in. He hadn't expected me to fight back like this. He thought I would crumble under the pressure. Kara, too, looked uncomfortable. She had been so sure of herself, so confident that I would fold, that she hadn't even considered that I might be able to expose their true colors. I could see her glancing nervously at Ethan, her hands fidgeting in her lap. But the worst was yet to come. During a recess, Jessica pulled me aside, her face pale and serious. She handed me her phone, showing me a string of messages she had just received. My heart stopped when I saw who they were from: Kara. She had messaged Jessica, begging her to drop out as my witness, claiming that I was unstable and that Ethan and I had a history of volatile fights. She painted me as someone on the edge, dangerous to be around, and promised that if Jessica walked away, she wouldn't drag her into the mess. Jessica hadn't responded, but she had taken screenshots of everything. It was the smoking gun we didn't expect to find. When the court resumed, we presented the messages. Kara's face turned white as they were displayed on the screen for everyone to see. Her attempts to manipulate my best friend were laid bare, and I could see Ethan glaring at her, realizing the damage she had done. The judge's patience had worn thin. He didn't appreciate the underhanded tactics, and it was clear that Kara's meddling had backfired spectacularly. The courtroom was silent as the judge delivered his ruling: joint custody, with a warning to Ethan that any further attempts to manipulate the situation would result in a reassessment of the arrangement. It wasn't a perfect victory. I still had to share custody with Ethan, but it was a victory nonetheless. He hadn't won full custody, and Kara's reputation was in tatters. I could see the defeat in her eyes as we left the courtroom, her grip on Ethan's arm tightening as if she knew their little charade was crumbling. But as much as I wanted to feel triumphant, I couldn't shake the weight of everything that had happened. Ethan and Kara had put me through hell. They had tried to take my daughter, turn my friends against me, and destroy my life. And while I had won the legal battle, I knew they wouldn't stop trying to make my life difficult. A few days after the court ruling, I got a message from Ethan. It was short, just a few sentences, but it sent a chill down my spine. "This isn't over. You think you've won, but I'll find a way. You're going to regret crossing me." I showed the message to Jessica, and she urged me to file a restraining order, but I wasn't sure if it would do any good. Ethan was relentless. He had already proven that he was willing to go to any lengths to make my life miserable, and a piece of paper wasn't going to stop him. I had to be careful. I had to protect Emma, protect myself. Ethan might not have full custody, but he still had access to our daughter, and I knew he would try to use that to his advantage. I couldn't trust him, not for a second. As the days went on, I tried to rebuild some semblance of normalcy. I focused on Emma, on being the best mother I could be. But the scars of what Ethan and Kara had done remained. I couldn't forget how easily they had turned my life upside down, how they had manipulated and lied without a second thought. I started therapy, hoping to work through the trauma, but the anger lingered. The betrayal was too deep, too fresh, and I knew that as long as Ethan and Kara were still in my life, as long as they had even the slightest bit of control, I would never truly be free. The legal battle might have ended, but the war wasn't over. Ethan's threats hung over me like a dark cloud, and I knew it was only a matter of time before he made his next move. But this time, I would be ready. I had survived their lies, their manipulation, their attempts to destroy me. And no matter what they threw at me next, I wasn't going to let them win. Not again.